record on the computer. All right. Well, let's try to be less like a radio presenter. Welcome everybody. Questions? Anybody before I start talking about the thing? Remember, today is the beginning of the last week of the first term. Next week will be a holiday, so we will not have any live sessions. We won't have any interaction, but I hope you're going to keep working, of course, on the material. Keep in mind that learning, particularly learning a skill like programming, is something that requires continuous activity, and like learning a musical instrument is not very different. Okay. Anything, comment, question from you? You can see that in the share screen, I have your chat window. So if you type a message there, you're going to see the thing, and everybody is going to see the thing, and I'm going to answer, of course. As usual, we do have a possible question coming from this thing. Let me see, introduction to computing here. Okay, Mini Majola says it's been there for the past 5 minutes. I already explained to you that we start a couple of minutes in the, but looks like she's actually not getting anywhere. Mini, you probably, let me just say, you have, you don't, it does not seem to be so. Anyway, so I don't see any question coming from you. So let me just go through the routine that should be done by you every single Monday. And for that, of course, so we go onto the site. You can see that the first thing that you should do always is to check if there is a new README. Well, of course, there might be some READMEs that are new to you, personally, specifically. There is no README that has been posted in the last day or two. Of course, the last is the README on why YouTube is not a good idea. If you've never read it, read it. The other thing that I would recommend is that you periodically read again all the other ones, because there is plenty of information that I can see that is not very clear in your heads for one reason or for another. Repetition does help in getting better in understanding things, and not just in remembering things, but actually in understanding. Sometimes you reread the stuff and you say, ah, that is what was meant. But if there is no README, then what is the next step of your morning algorithm for this course? Well, you know that you have to go to the to-do folder and find what is the to-do for the week. Of course, you might have missed the previous week, then of course you have to go through the previous week. But this is we have not missed, of course, the previous week. So we go to this. Notice that is the 5th week, starting on the 28th of March. So it's very easy to identify the stuff. And here we are. That is the fundamental thing that you have to do for the week. Remember, I repeated this the last week of the term. And you can see that, as usual, I kind of start telling you where you should be in terms of what the work that you've done before this week, and then what is the focus. Well, let's immediately go for the focus, then we go back to what should be, you know, something that you are in control of, or you're getting in control of. So we are going to play around with the Python interpreter this week. That means we start actually getting closer to this goal, that is to show you how to program a computer. And you know that we are going to do it with this specific great language that is called Python, very powerful, and as well, at least if used in a kind of as a beginner, it's a simple language as well. All right. Of course, we are coming from representing whole numbers and characters. We spent actually a bit more than a week on that. And of course, that is an important thing for me, although I'm afraid that quite a few of you have completely forgotten. I'm talking about the people that have actually a laptop. Unfortunately, the only one at the moment that can do this thing. Although there is something that I should say here, and maybe I would prepare a README for that. Let me just note this stuff down so I don't forget about that. README on touch typing on cell phone. Touch typing on cell phone. Because you know that most of you have phones that would be able to be used with a standard USB-based keyboard. You understand what it means USB-based? That means that the keyboard can connect to the cell phone. Keyboards are not expensive. A USB keyboard will cost you probably not more than 120, 130 rand, okay? And you then need to get an adapter because, of course, you can see that, of course, the USB keyboard will have a different size USB connector. But if your phone is of the type OTG, on the go phone, then you'll be able to get this adapter and start typing away into your cell phone, and that will allow to get an application to learn touch typing. Okay, and that, by the way, will speed up your interaction with WhatsApp, etc., etc., etc. Everybody happy with this thing? Did people knew that they could attach a normal keyboard to their cell phones? Let me open again. I just would like to have a little bit of interaction back from you guys. Who knew that they could attach a standard cheap USB cable, USB keyboard? I'm not talking about the more expensive Bluetooth keyboard, because that, of course, you can attach to any of your phones. You don't have to be sure that you have the phone has the OTG capability, simply because every one of your phones have Bluetooth. But the Bluetooth keyboard has the effect of costing a lot more than the USB keyboard. Can somebody come back to me on this stuff? What they know, what they don't know, if they find the idea interesting, please go ahead. You can type away, you can connect, open your mic and talk. But as usual, please let me just hear you or see your messages. Otherwise, it becomes a very long, boring monologue, boring particularly for me, but not just for me. Okay. Well, Sneh, I see that you are on, and maybe you can just carry a little bit of the interaction. Looks like the rest of the class is still half asleep or something. So
Morning, sir.
Hi, Sneh. Did you know about the possibility of connecting a keyboard to your cell phone?
So yes, I did.
Sorry?
Yes, I did.
Okay, perfect. Did you already connect?
Like my keyboard to my phone.
One USB keyboard, one USB keyboard to your phone.
No, sir, I haven't.
You have not. Okay.
Yes, I'm currently using my laptop though.
No, you have the laptop, so of course you are out of
I don't need it.
Of the focus of this thing, of course, and that's fine. But there are about, according to my survey, the initial survey, about 70 to 80 people in the class without a laptop. So it should be an important thing for them. Of course, it might be that are the people that are completely, totally lost, so we never listen to this live session, of course, unfortunately. But okay, so what I was trying to focus on, and by the way, Sneh, are you on Sisi now? Because Sisi has opened his mic. Are you busy working through your touch typing? If you have not, if you don't already touch type, you might be somebody who touch type as well. Of course, what is your situation?
I have been doing touch typing for quite a while now, so it really is working.
Okay, so for you it's working. So can you just tell the other people how much quicker things happen if you touch type compared to go around and look for every single letter on the keyboard that you have to type?
Well, I mean, it becomes much more easier because I mean, it challenges you to increase your speed when you type. And it also introduces like new characters in your keyboard, like things you don't normally pay attention to, such as like the semicolon and pressing like, different buttons in conjunction with each other. So it's really been beneficial to me in that sense.
Okay, perfect. Right. I hope everybody listen to that. Nowadays, currently, future might be different. Past was definitely different as well, but currently is very hard for me to imagine that you can be a practicing computer scientist, a practicing professional, if you are not touch typing. Okay, so that's all for this little bit of a feedback. Thank you very much, and let's go and see what we are going to do with the interpreter. Remember that you can imagine that you have documents to help you with climbing into the Python interpreter and start playing around. Okay, as usual, there are documents in the resource folder. Okay, one is actually a book on Python, which is an interesting open source book, so people can actually go modify it if they like it. It's totally legal to do so, and it's actually welcome. For the moment, I have put in the two chapters. The full book is actually, I should have put the link here, but I can, well, I'm going to modify the to-do so that I put the original, the link here if you want to see the rest of the book. But if you are somebody who likes to go ahead and do other things, please keep in mind that there might be, we are not going to follow the book exactly as is in terms of chapter sequence for a number of reasons. Certainly the first two chapters will be done in the version that I put down here. So of course, you can expect probably the second chapter to be at the beginning of the next term. So if you are one of these people that have plenty of time in their hands, they have been already doing some of the stuff, they have done CAT or CS in school, etc. Then of course, go ahead and have fun. Then of course, because we are doing something that needs to be practical and fun, of course, you have to install the Python interpreter. So let's actually go to this to the folder on the actual resources of the resource, and then you can see, as usual, this is the 5th week of the course. Keep in mind that we count week of the course, not necessarily week of terms, right? So the next, the first week of the next term will be 06, of course, right? And you can see these two things. This is the book. You can see that this stuff is already recorded as with some modification for you guys, all right? And you can see, you will see that it is written in a very simple but good way. But as usual, like you had to do with the Stanford University slides, etc., you have to use your brain, understand every single bit of what is inside here, etc., etc. Right. The other thing is the installation of the Python interpreter, and here things can get reasonably interesting. I prepared a guide that should work reasonably easily for most of you having a laptop that run Windows 10, and that is, of course, the preferred installation. The good luck is that in the actual market store of, just open up quickly and then I will close, the market store of Microsoft, which is the equivalent of the Google Play market, of course, but for Microsoft stuff. You have the Python that the interpreter that we are going to use. We are going to see it in action just now. And the point is, I just put down for people that, you know, that maybe a little bit longer way of doing, but something that makes the stuff reasonably easy. If you know how to go to the market store, go to the market store, of course, and just choose, look for Python. In fact, I should give that path as well, of course. Otherwise, just follow this instruction, but that in fact is more complicated, if you like, although it would be useful for other things. Is useful to allow you to go to understand how the magic logo Windows logo key works. Is at the bottom of your screen. You can see it. I'm indicating it at the moment right now here. When you click, you can put in, of course, a request for applications. And interesting enough, if the application is not available, okay, in this case, I just want you to be able to open the command prompt. And if you, once you have opened the command prompt, you can check if the Python application is already installed or not. It's just enough to type the word Python in the prompt that opens. And if it is installed, that is what you're going to see here. Let me just make it a little bit bigger. If that means the interpreter will start and you start having fun, of course. If Python is not installed, then your, which is the case for the first installation, if Python is not installed, then you will be taken to the Microsoft market. You can see here the screenshot of that, where you just click install and get the stuff installed. Okay, so in fact, I repeat, in reality, I will put the other path, simply going to the market store of Windows. So if you go into, again, of course, you have to click the magic window logo. Keep in mind that there is, as you know, as most of you know, there is the window logo on most commercial keyboards. Is one of the key. If you push that key, this very same view will open. At the moment, I'm just pushing the key on my keyboard, and you can see that the stuff as well, of course, in the other screen. So let me just go here. It's simpler. This window will open where you can choose Microsoft, the Microsoft Store. Of course, you then would buy, you would type Python, and you're going to be served a number of possibilities. And of course, the best thing would be to pick up one. This one, you can see that is installed on my machine. All of them are free. These interpreters are coming from the Python Foundation, is free and open source software. Okay, so once you have installed the stuff, then you still have to learn to start your command prompt, of course. But you go into the command prompt, type Python, and that will open your interpreter. Now the computer is here, happy for us to start interacting in a more detailed way compared to what you could have been doing until now through the interfaces of applications written by other people for you. Now you can start talking to the computer in a very detailed manner. You're starting sharing a language with the computer, if you like, and we are going to spend the next few weeks to understand how this language works, of course. But in the meantime, and by the way, why this thing is called an interpreter? You know, interpreter is like a translator, if you like. You must have seen, okay, this person speaks this language, this other person speaks a different language, and the interpreter is there to make these people able to communicate with each other. You must have seen this thing happen quite, I mean, a typical thing. It comes to my mind, they say, you are attending a ceremony, the ceremony is officiated, is done in a certain language, which maybe is the local language of the community in which the ceremony happens, and yet you have guests that come from another place that can't speak that language. Then you'll have an interpreter there, right? That will just translate what the person, so sorry, whatever happens in the ceremony for the people that don't understand that language. Okay, everybody's happy and understand what I'm talking about, I hope. So why do we have this interpreter? Because the Python language, as good as this for us, is still a little bit not directly understandable by the computer. We can simplify for the moment and pretend that it is directly understandable. But the reason why this environment in which we are now is called interpreter is because the computer needs to speak an even more, a language which is called typically machine language, which is really just a sequence of zeros and ones yet again, because we already know that at the bottom, this mechanical device, the computer, is actually a bunch of two-state systems. Okay. All right, but it's less important. Yes, Sneh, great. Yes, please. Go.
So is PyCharm like the best interpreter for Python?
Sorry, is Python?
PyCharm like the best interpreter for Python?
You mean the best? Okay. What I'm trying to say, this Python is just, you know, the command that you have seen in, okay, Python is a language. Python is a language like Zulu is a language, okay? Is not a natural language, is a programming language, okay? Then this programming language that is, you know, structured around kind of English words or something, is still a little bit far away from the language that the central processor unit in your computer can actually understand directly, which can be used to have operations done by the computer. Because of that, you need an interpreter. Okay, the interpreter that you see at the moment here, and now I'm opening up the full thing, so you just see that, which I invoked through typing the command Python, okay, is yet an interpreter, is still, I mean, is the interpreter for Python, okay? Tabizo is saying something here.
Yes, sir. I can't seem to see your screen, sir. Can you please zoom out?
Yeah, okay, for sure. Thank you very much. That was an important thing to, in fact, I'm zooming out. You can see the, in fact, let me just get out from here.
So, I think you're moving a little bit too fast.
Sorry?
So I think you're moving too fast.
Too fast on what?
Sir?
Sorry, that's interesting as a point, Lungelo, but I don't understand too fast in what sense.
Okay. Like you're moving too fast in teaching, you know. I felt to understand what you're talking about.
Okay. Are you talking about at the concept level or at the from the point of view of the words of the speed of the words? There are two different things.
The speed of the words.
The speed of the words. Okay, well, I'm going to try to talk a little bit slower, but what I was trying to say at the moment, and maybe I got a little bit entangled in this thing for nothing, is why we call this thing that I have just put down, which is of course is an application. Why this application is called interpreter, or more specifically, Python interpreter. Okay, just that. I was just trying to explain that, but it's probably actually kind of useless at the moment. All right. So we do have we do need an application that allows us to talk to the computer using the Python language. This application happens to be called Python interpreter, and I've seen how to install it on a laptop machine. After that, we can talk to our computer and ask to do things. For example, I'm asking to type the word oops. Okay, there it is. That is, and you can see that the computer responds typing the word oops. I can ask my computer to do a little bit of arithmetic. Okay, you can see that understands immediately what to do. All right.
Excuse me, sir.
2 times, yeah.
So I don't think I was clear enough in my question. So what I was saying is Python has so many interpreters, right? So I was asking you which one is like best recommended for our module. Is it PyCharm or is it like other types of interpreters?
No. Okay, now I understand, Snake. We are using the reference. It's not question of, it's probably the best as well if you like, but the important thing is that we are using at the moment the reference interpreter from the Python Foundation. Okay, so we are using the standard. We are not talking about, notice that there are more complex environments that are called integrated development environment, which we will not use because we focus on fundamentals. We are not focusing on frills and useless stuff, nor we focus on final productivity for an experienced programmer. We are focused on understanding what we are doing. So we are using the bare bone interpreter that is provided by the foundation that is in charge of the standardization of Python. You understand? That is what I asked you to install. That stuff here that has been installed is exactly that, right? Now, okay, but we can ask just to kind of get your, okay, different story, unfortunately, is for the people with the cell phone. We are going to go with to that just now, but I would like just to make you realize how interesting and powerful the stuff is here. I can ask, of course, you'll have to start understanding the language, of course, but in this case, I'm asking the computer to please give me the ASCII value, in fact, the Unicode value for the capital letter A. And you remember these two numbers, particularly the second one, you probably should remember because it was in the Stanford slides, right? But I can do even better. What about asking to have the stuff given to me in binary? There it is, or in hexadecimal. Sorry, in fact, I'm just, of course, I can just use the arrow to repeat the stuff. Okay. There it is. All right. So you can see that now I can start deciding what instruction I give the computer for execution instead of depending on what a developer has put in the application. Of course, you can say, but it's very bare bone. Well, we're going to see that can become as a lot less bare bone than that. Of course, we can, in this language, develop exactly the same applications that you can see here. Now I put in, okay, this does look as an application. This is part of the Zoom application, of course, is the one that shows the participant. Looks very different from this, but in reality, it's just surface differences, not fundamental difference. This thing gets built through instructions of the type that you can see here, or better, maybe see here. Okay, this print at the bottom, at the top. But the point is, while in this interface you are constrained by what the developer decide you could do, okay? So I can ask for somebody to unmute. I can do other operation, of course, so you can see the stuff, etc., etc. The point is, when you start working at the level at which we are starting now, you can do whatever you like. Of course, you're not going to develop an application for every single thing you want to do because you never go home. But the point is, you'll be able to develop specialized applications in situations where you are not satisfied or with the applications that exist, or simply the application that you are trying to do does not exist at all. Okay, so that is the core point of programming. But it will take, of course, quite a bit of time before we are going to be able to build something like that. What we want to understand is the foundation of programming, right? Okay, so let me just go back for the people that don't have a laptop. Okay, and here what Sneh was asking comes to is an important point. Say, unfortunately, as far as I know, but I might be wrong, by the way, I don't think there is a Python Foundation reference interpreter for Android, as is at least. And I just found what seems to be the most reasonable one to be able to do at least the reading of the first 2 chapters of the book, okay? So that you don't get delayed for the fact if you just have you know, the 70 or 80 of you that don't have a laptop, don't get delayed because they are not yet back on campus. And let's hope that you're going to, you know, that soon you're going to be back, but because there is no guarantee at the moment, as you know, this is an open question. Right, so in this case, Bionic Python 3 interpreter, and here is the way it looks, of course. Fortunately, here it is, the stuff. Fortunately, you can see that, well, there is something that you recognize there, this little 3 prompt, which is the point in which you can give the instruction to your interpreter. And then, of course, you can imagine that the answer to what happens will happen up here. All right, so that is the situation. Of course, this is just a temporary solution, but certainly will have to last until you are back on campus for people without access to a standard machine. Okay, so okay. Here we are. We can go back to the stuff. And that's it, essentially. In practice, you want to start going through the book. And of course, this is already something you won't encounter immediately on the book. But if you are interested in the thing, these are specific command, in fact, specific functions that do operations for you. One thing that we probably should do, let me just go and get the book open for, let's go back on this thing here. We just open the book and we can, you know, resolve the stuff that you want to read, of course, and then you can see that I put in the pointer to the resource folder here for you guys to install the stuff. Let's assume that you have installed the stuff, and then you can see that the book takes you through a little tour of the interpreter environment. Okay, and okay, you can see that, oops. When I recompile this stuff, I missed I can see that the little quotes, single quotes or double quotes are not in here. So we are going to, I'm going to fix the stuff as soon as we finish this live session. If things don't work, remember you might have to put something, some double quotes or single quotes somewhere. And in fact, let me going to show you what happens if we just do. Remember that we did a print oops like that here. We are going now to do a print oops without the quotation sign. And you can see that is unhappy about what this is their syntax error. The syntax is not correct. Let's now try to do like that. Let's eliminate the exclamation point there. And here is unhappy anyway, because he says, oops, that at this point, not being in double or single quotes, is something that is not just something to print. We are going to see that it thinks we're going to see soon, but it will take a few days, of course, for you to start getting your mind around the stuff. Is going to think that there should be a variable or something called ops, which is not there. Of course, we could fix the point. We actually make a variable that is called one, say. Now, if I say, go back and print ops, then it's not a problem. It contains one, and we are in business. Of course, we could make, well, let's not do that. Let's call it ops1. We can make it contain a string that actually maybe is ops like that, okay? And now we have ops1 that contains the string. If we are going to this, we're going to print ops1, there it is. We are back to printing ops. All the story simply because I hope everybody understood what I said in the recompilation of this test. The quotations here that declare essentially this thing as a string as opposed to anything else have disappeared, and so I have to fix it. Okay. All right. Okay, so are you ready to start playing around for the people at least in the meeting here?
Sorry, sir.
Yes.
Sir, can you please scroll up again?
Yeah. Yeah.
So for the print thing over here, so whenever we want to print something on screen, like, do we not need quotation marks? Because I see for the addition of numbers or for the multiplication of things, we don't normally put inverted commas or like brackets around.
Or single yes. Okay. The important thing to say, you remember that we've been speaking you might, we introduced the concept of string last week, right? Okay. String is just a string, it's a short form for string of characters, so a sequence of characters, right? And the classical thing all through the programming world is that strings have to be enclosed in quotes, double quotes, single quotes, but some sort of quotes, all right? Numbers don't have to have that, okay? Although the interpreter, okay, in this case, you can see that the result of the operation is directly printed here because the interpreter does that as a favor to you. There is nothing wrong in deciding that you are asking the stuff to be printed. In fact,
okay,
you see that when we start writing programs, if you want to have 2 + 1 printed out, coming out onto your standard output, then you'll have to put the print, you'll have to actually put in a print statement. This is a specific statement that you give, a specific instruction that you give to the computer. But when you are using the interpreter, you can skip the point of putting in print. It's really up to you. There is
okay, sir. Thank you.
Spend time on that because you pointed out. For this week, we stay within the within the interpreter and start and try to get acquainted to the interpreter, but start understanding that we are giving finally, in this case, I think, unless you've done already computer science at school or you've done for your own interest, we are starting giving detailed instruction to the machine that executes in a very basic manner, of course, direct instructions to it. Compared to what you do when you are using an application, whereby the application is actually not giving direct instruction from you to the computer, gives direct instructions from the programmer of the application, who has decided what you can do or not do with their application. Okay. In this case, we are in front of of course, you can say, well, but the interpreter is the application. Absolutely. But this application allows us to send direct instructions, direct commands to the computer, to this mechanical environment made of these two-state systems that is able, in reaction to our instruction, to do things. So that is the difference, okay? So this application, let's say like that, maybe, the Python interpreter is an application that allows you to instruct directly the computer compared to what happens through the other applications you have seen until now, where the instruction does not is mediated by the code that a programmer has written for you, okay? So, right, so there it is. I would like you to start working, install the stuff, be it the laptop or the cell phone, and start doing things and reading the book, of course, while you do the exercise. And don't be afraid at all, of course, to experiment and try to get a good, conceptual model of what is happening. All right. So we have come to the end of the lecture. I go back to what we were. Well, maybe let me just restart the stuff. Just to play around and maybe read something about this stuff. You can see that again, I have to do this stuff like that. This specific function, of course, we are going to talk about function later, does not matter, but is a type of instruction, of course, is a type of instruction, the same class of print, of course, but okay. And actually the opposite one, you can see that I have the reverse function. If I do that, if I do that, you can see that prints for me the character A. So I give a Unicode code and I get the character that corresponds to that Unicode point. All right. Okay, and for that you can just check on the internet. You find immediately quite good descriptions of both functions. And that brings you back a little bit now that you have the control of direct instruction to this to the computer. Well, you could build your ASCII or Unicode table on your own. Of course, there are limitations that you are not going to want to print for the next 2 years. Maybe there will be a way of shortening the stuff, and we are going to see that as well. But the point is, now you are in direct communication with the computer through this interpreter. Okay. People, that's it. Try to get your mind around that. Each one is going to have a different conceptual realization of the stuff, I think, but none will be able to understand what's going on until they spend time within this environment with the help of the book as a guide. Okay, and it will be certainly fun, but you have to put in time and be patient and understand every single reaction of the computer. Okay, great. People, I'll talk to you on Wednesday, but in the meantime, please work on the stuff. Bye-bye.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, can I ask something?
Yes.
I
Absolutely.
see that you before you get 97, you have to write that ORT and then into A. I just want to understand what's that ORT. I didn't know if it's ORD or it's ORT. What does it stand for?
Well, OR stands for ordinal. Ordinal because is the request for a number. Okay, numbers are ordered sets that are in an order. That's the reason why you can call them ordinal. But this is an abbreviation. CHA stands for character, of course. Ordinal stands for number. It's another way, it's a more sophisticated way of saying number. It's just a short thing because in Python, often the Python writers like to keep things short as opposed to other languages like Java, where things are written out in long form, or in fact, often in HTML as well, right? And it's an old way of thinking about the stuff. Of course, that makes it a little bit cryptic, a little bit more difficult to remember, but certainly makes it much easier to type. You understand? That is the only reason. But it's not, I mean, this is just a little example to, to get your interest up, but it's not here nor there. Has no importance to know that there is a function called ord that does this mapping from a character to a Unicode point, or there is a character, whatever. There are hundreds of these things. There are actually not hundreds. There are thousands. In fact, not thousands. There are tens of thousands. And you can build your own as well. And we are going to see how to do and blah, 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 blah. I wanted just to say that you can now, they have now a very powerful instrument to talk directly to the computer. That is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, you understand? And there is very little intermediation at this point between you and the computer. Of course, there is still the interpreter, okay? But hopefully, by the end of your computer science curriculum, not tomorrow, but by the end of your degree, you'll be able yourself to write the interpreter, okay? Well, a piece of interpreter, of course. All right.
Sorry, sir.
Yes.
Is it possible to format strings on Python?
It's possible to do whatever you like. I don't like any other Python. But at the moment, of course, we are not going to get into the details of single plus it, because it means what level of formatting you want to talk about, etc., etc. It's possible to do whatever you like. That is the core point.
So then does that mean Python works with CSS for the formatting part?
CSS is not formatting. It is there. Now I understand what you mean by formatting is really the presentation, including the font, etc., etc. If you are talking about, but this is going to be lost to every, probably most of the other people in the classroom. And I understand that you have a specific interest in HTML. I guess somebody told you, or you already have some experience in web development. Talent, I've seen your hands. I'm going to come back to you just now. The HTML web environment has specific styling sheets, well, cascading styling sheets, CSSs, that are used to do very detailed formatting. It's not just formatting strings, of course, it's formatting everything that appears onto the screen to the user. You can, of course, do, if the question is, can you do web development using Python? The question is totally yes, but the files that you send to the web browser, rendering of the page, etc., will still be CSS, HTML, and JavaScript. That would be the classical thing. But you can generate all these files in the back end. If you have been doing web development, you understand what I'm talking about, with using in your backend engine Python, absolutely, 100%. Although often in the backend you have nowadays, the old style PHP, and nowadays often JavaScript directly. Okay, but yes, can you build web pages using Python? The answer is yes, but you still go through CSS. Talente, tell me what you wanted to ask.
Yes, I wanted to ask if where can we get these prefixes like prints, odd, chats, like a list of them,
Oh,
so
Talente, you must, okay. You must be patient. You must be patient. At the moment, you have to read the book. Trust me, read the book seriously and be patient, learn little by little, okay? You can say, I could, if I'm teaching you English, you can say, okay, where do I find the words? Where do I find the words? Well, of course, I can tell you, go to a dictionary and you find all the words, but that won't make you speak English, you understand?
Yeah, I understand. But my point is, we are going to be, experimenting until, Wednesday, and well, sort of every day, so like I would need such, to be experimenting.
Go through the book.
The book, okay, super.
Absolutely, and go through all the stuff that is in the book. At a certain point, there will be questions, there will be experiments that the book would like you to do, etc., etc. And sometimes, if the experiment goes in such a way that you don't see the explanation in the book is short, and I like that. I think you have already understood the stuff, because short is better than long, in my opinion, by far. But you have to learn something that you have not learned often through your education until now, which is zooming into super detail, as opposed to have an enormous amount of things that you have to learn and control, and then being unable to be doing that because you are flooded with too much information. Okay, all right. So all the questions that have been asked now, both by Sneh and Talente, are great, but you simply have to wait until time will come where you'll be able to answer those questions. So let's start with the simple things and go through the book diligently, patiently. And in some cases, of course, you need to open up a little bit to the resources that I told you. Wikipedia is a good idea. And of course, the Python Foundation documentation is great as well. Okay, great. People, I really need to cut, otherwise somebody will have to leave anyway, because the new period comes out now. I'm stopping the sharing and